There are three undefeated teams left in college basketball, to be fair, Division I college basketball. And right now, we're going to break down how you can beat any one of them. Let's start with Arizona. Trotter, the floor is yours. What do you have for Tommy Lloyd's club?
Yeah, I'm getting all of my pads out and I am dressing like a football team to try to beat Arizona because the violence and the physicality that Arizona plays with is unlike many teams in college basketball. I think schematically wise, you're really trying to shorten the game against them. Anytime you run with Arizona and try to get into a track meet, you're just inviting danger. And then I think also in your half-court defense, you have to show bodies against Koa Pete's drives. He's been a little bit more turnover prone here in the Big 12 as teams load up against some of his drives. You better be really physical with their front court combo of Tobe Awaka and Motias Krivas. And then on the other end, your guards better be able to make shots off the bounce because you're going to see a lot of deep drop coverage and that opens up the middle of the floor. If your guards can't make those type of middle of the floor jumpers, you're in hot water. But this is a tall task because you can talk X's and O's regardless, but if you don't have the personnel to go up against one of the meanest most physical and violent teams in college basketball, you have no shot.
All right, I want to piggyback off a couple of those points because you made a reference to loading up on Koa Pete's drives. I also think you need to load up on his rolls because when he's rolling, Krivas is ducking in. And at the end of the day, Arizona's math is about beating you in the paint. They're a terrific offensive rebounding team. They've got all those big bodies and they don't even try and shoot threes. Obviously, that's an overstatement, but they shoot less threes than I think any team, but maybe 3 or 4 in all of college basketball. So that is their Achilles heel. So you take those points away or you try and play them as even as you can by getting back in transition, by building a wall and making them get to the second side of the floor, by not getting, I think this is huge, not allowing their bigs to seal you, I think is absolutely vital. And then offensively, you talked about needing the personnel, being the guards being able to make shots off the dribble. How about this? I think if you have bigs who can shoot, if you have stretch bigs, that is problematic for Arizona because they do want to play in those deep drops. And if you can pull them away from the basket, get them away from their comfort zone, opens up the lane a little bit, even if not, the math changes, but you can potentially get downhill if you have guys who can make those mid-range jumpers. I think that is a lot how you have to attack an Arizona team. Again, their math is all about beating you in the paint, and they're willing to concede that they're not going to shoot many threes at all. All right, let's talk about Nebraska. Fred Hoiberg is my pick for the coach of the year, certainly. Trotter, these guys share it extremely well. They never turn it over, and that is what I think the part of this team that we don't talk enough about is how high their assist rate is and how low their turnovers are. Just on sheer logic, a team that passes the ball that much more frequently than anyone else should turn it over, but they don't. And similarly, they shoot a ton of threes. They shoot at a really high percentage. That should tell you that they should have a variance in their outcomes. But again, they don't. A team that shoots that many threes should be more susceptible to losses, and yet they're undefeated. So how do you beat this team?
I think defensively, it does start with your front court players have to be really mobile and they have to communicate as well as they have all year long because Nebraska spreads you out at such a high level. They use rink mass as that, 5-out hub with dribble handoffs. And I think a lot of teams right now are trying to switch everything against Nebraska because their off-ball actions are so layered and so terrific. But when you do that, that just makes it very, very hard because if you bust one switch, they have a lot of counters for backdoor layups. They have great shooting all over the floor. They space it very, very well. So I think your bigs have to be mobile. They have to be active. They have to switch everything at a very, very high level. And then offensively against Nebraska, you have to play in the middle third of the floor. That really limits how they can trap you because they're going to put 2 to the ball a lot. If you have to play in the middle third of the floor. And Nebraska's secret sauce this year defensively is they give up a lot of threes. That lacks context. Nebraska is one of the elite teams in the country at limiting unguarded catch and shoot threes. What does that mean? They're leaving you with taking rushed, contested threes at the end of the shot clock. How to avoid that? You've got to play in the middle third of the floor or you're in really, really hot water against one of the most well-coached teams in the sport this season.
All right. I think that is spot on, and I want to expand on that just a little bit. I think the reason you need to play in the middle third of the floor is they're trying to push you to the sidelines. They're trying to push you to the sidelines and then just really load to the ball. With Rinkmast at the 5, they don't have a prototypical shot blocker, so they're going to early help, and they are as good as a defensive team as there is in college basketball at defending post-ups, which is very counterintuitive because they don't have a shot blocker. So that means if you do get to push to the sideline, you've got to skip it and get to the second side of the floor. The reason why they force those really low shooting percentages from behind the 3-point line, even though they're giving up a lot of them, is they by design run past you on their closeouts. They do flyby closeouts, which means they're jumping right past you. So there's an opportunity, if you're patient enough and you can get to that second side of the floor, to attack a closeout and play through there. I also think there's an opportunity to play through the post, get to the second side of the floor, attack a closeout and play through there. But it's going to take a really disciplined offensive attack that's able to make a second and third play in the possession, because this is a Nebraska defense that we don't talk enough about. They are, for their personnel, they are exceptional, and their rotations are spot on because of their continuity. This is just a poster board for player retention and the merits of it in terms of developing cohesiveness on both ends of the floor. So I do think you're spot on with that, and figuring out how to handle their defense is a part of it that maybe we're not talking enough about, because everyone is very intrigued, rightfully so, on how well they pass it, how well they share it, how well they space it, how well they shoot it from all 5 positions on the floor. All right, the last undefeated team in all of college basketball is Miami of Ohio. And Trotter, I want to give Travis Steele a whole lot of credit here, because he was the head coach at Xavier 4 years ago. He's really reinvented himself here at Miami of Ohio. And I'll tell you this, not only are these guys undefeated, this is also like fun basketball. They play with great pace. They play 5 out. Everybody can shoot the ball. And if you like offense, you are going to enjoy this product. So if you're in that Miami, Ohio area, buy a ticket, because this is good theater. Now, they've had some close games as of late. How are teams playing with them, and how do you get over the hump and give Miami of Ohio their first loss of the season?
Man, this is a tough team to guard. I think the pick and roll offense that they have is terrific. I'm not sure there's one pick and roll coverage that works best against this group. I would go into this trying to maybe switch everything and force them to play isolation basketball. Now, that's easier said than done. Peter Suter has been unbelievable this year in isolation, but I'm going to try to force them to play more isolation ball, because they're so scary when the ball gets moving and popping. I'd also mix in some hard hedges and try to heat the ball up a little bit and try to force some turnovers against them, because I think they're a little bit susceptible in the open floor. And then on the other end, offensively against Miami, Ohio, you just have to generate paint touches. Their one flaw this year that I'm kind of curious to see how it scales up, down the road, and if they make the NCAA tournament, teams have really gouged them at the rim. Teams are shooting 63% at the rim this year if they ranked in the top 200. So they don't have a great rim protector. They don't have unbelievable defense, but I will say this, they have one awesome defender, Ian Elmer. If you haven't watched him play, just a terrific, active, smart, tough, dependable defender. I'm doing everything in my power to get him out of the play and attack other guys, because anytime you go after Ian Elmer, bad things tend to happen for your offense.
Here's some offensive analytics for Miami of Ohio. They are first in the country in effective field goal percentage. They shoot 39% from behind the 3-point line, and 46% of their total field goal attempts are from behind the arc. And then because they space you so effectively, it ends up leaving the paint open. So they're shooting, how about this, 62% on 2-point field goals, which is just really, really impressive. And they do play relatively fast. I think the key to playing them is, listen, they're going to score. So you've got to score too. I mean, you mentioned Elmer. He's a great defensively, but analytically, this team is not elite defensively. And we've seen teams put up points against them. So I think you've got to make things as hard as you can against them, but recognize, like, hey, they're going to make some shots. They're going to score the ball. We've got to continue to score with them. Got to continue to space them out and put points on the board and not get deflated. Now, defensively, how do you take away their threes? It starts in transition defense. And then I think the key is you have to have the responsibility to guard your own man. We don't want to be put in long closeout situations. We want to stunt and get back to our shooters, force them to make ideally contested twos. I think that is the best recipe possible. But again, Travis Steele, salutes to you, my man. You are doing a heck of a job, and it is a fun team to watch at Miami of Ohio.